I'm going to show you one possible method that can be used for building towers in a tower defense game. So the first thing that I thought of was that when I'm building towers, I actually want to have per tower, I want to have two different objects. The first is, as I'm going to go place the tower, I want there to be a visual, a preview of what it is that I might be building. And I'm going to make that red. And so it could be your tower with different materials on it or something. And then when I click, then I want to build the actual tower, which will be white. So I have this preview object, and then I also have the real tower itself. One of these is just a visual. One of these is the actual tower with all of its logic for shooting and aiming at enemies and things on those lines. All right. Now that I have those things set up, let's also take a look at my canvas. So I hooked up the third button on my canvas, or the third button on my canvas, just to be this generic build tower button. So the way that I want it to behave is I click the build tower button, and then it puts the preview object on my mouse cursor, which I can move around in place. And then when I click, it will put the actual object at the position my mouse cursor currently at, right? So it's sort of like free form tower placement. So let's hook the logic up for this. Now I have a game manager object, which is where all of this logic will happen. So the first thing I need to do is, what do I want to happen? So the first thing I actually should do is just hook up references to the tower preview prefab as well as the tower prefab. So I'm going to do that as object variables. So here's my tower preview prefab. And if you had multiple towers, you would need multiple prefabs and multiple here. And then I'm going to have my actual tower prefab. These are both game objects, and my preview I'm going to hook up just like this, and my tower I'm going to hook up just like that, right? You can also hit this and then search for them under your assets and hook them up that way. Cool. So now I have my tower preview prefab and my tower prefab. All right. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hook up a Unity event for my button, and I'm going to call it build tower. Now, when build tower happens, what I want this to do is instantiate the prefab for the preview, right? So boop, there we go. And then I want to set, let's see, I'll have like an active preview object. Now the active preview object will be the actual object in the scene that is attached to my mouse, right? So once I spawn this, once I spawn this game object, instantiate game object like this, then the next thing I want to do is I want to set the variable, which is an object variable, and I want to set the active preview object to the variable that I just spawned. Ooh, this one gets hooked up too. If I get out of here. Like that. There we go. Cool. So the next thing I want to do, in my update. Now, the first thing I want to do is my active preview object by default is empty, is null. So I'm going to get this variable. And I need to figure out if there's a way to check on whether or not this thing is null or not, right? So I'll do an if. And then let's do like a, it's not a string compare. Let's see. Let's do a null check. This should work. So if my game object, my active preview object is not null, then I want to set its position equal to my mouse cursor's position. So I have another video where I covered how to do this, so I'm going to quickly set it up. Excellent. So when I click the build tower button, I will instantiate the preview object, and I will set that preview object that's been instantiated as my active preview object. Then every update, I will check if my active preview object is null. And if it is not null, then I will get the position where my mouse cursor is currently on the floor using the screen point array and the raycast. And then I will set the position of my active preview object to that position. Great. Okay. The next thing I want to do is when I click, let's see. So for this, I want to figure out when I click my mouse button down. Okay, so here's my input, get mouse button down. I'm going to hook this up to an update as well. Actually, I can tie this probably just to this. So if my active preview object is not null, yeah, I can tie it to this. So after I set the position, then I can check if my mouse button has been pressed. And if my mouse button has been pressed, then what I would like to do is instantiate the actual tower prefab at the same position as my raycast, right? And I want to use a default rotation. So quaternion get identity is the default rotation. And then I want to destroy the game object, which is my active preview object. So the red one that I have underneath. So let's get my my active preview object, and that's what I want to destroy. And then finally, just to make sure, the last thing I want to do is I want to set my active preview object equal to null. Just to make sure. Perfect. So when I click, I create the tower prefab, my actual tower. I put it at the same position as my preview object, which is on my mouse. And then I destroy the active preview object, the one that I'm moving around. And then I set that active preview object variable to null to make sure that's completely gone. And let's give this a shot and see if it works. All right, let's see what's happening here. So I click build tower and it doesn't work. And it doesn't work because I didn't set up my button. So I got to go to my button, my build tower button, and here in my on click, I need to hook this up to my game manager, and I need it to go to my flow machine, hit trigger Unity event, and I need this to execute the, what did I call it? Build tower. So this was in my script, this event here for build tower. This instantiates the preview object and sort of lets us hit the ground running. So let's actually hook up the button this time. All right, build tower. Ha, that's pretty funny. So I am clicking, and then as soon as I click, it is instantiating the tower underneath it. So this doesn't quite work. I need to add in some sort of like artificial delay here. Let's see. How can I do this? So the reason why this doesn't work is because I'm clicking, it's instantiating it, and at the exact same time, it does this update, it checks that's not null, it does the raycast, and then the get mouse position is immediately happening. So I would need to add in some sort of delay or some sort of check that it hasn't just been instantiated. What's the best way to do that? All right, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new variable that will just keep track of how much time has elapsed since I click the button, and then I will only let it happen if that variable is at 0. Um, so I'm just going to call it placement time, and I'm going to have this be a float, and I'm going to say it's 0.5, which means that when you click the button, this will just count down from 0.5. And so here, when it sets that variable, it's also going to set the placement time variable. To 0.5. And then here, right before it does this get mouse button down, I want to add a if, and I want to determine if the placement time Okay, so finally where I settled was that when I go to place the active preview object, I set this variable of placement time equal to 0.5. And then every update after I do my raycast and I set the position of my placement variable, I check if the placement time is less than or equal to 0. And if it is not, then I subtract delta of time from it. If it is, then I check get mouse button down. What this effectively should do is mean that it will wait half a second before it checks for this get mouse button down again to see if I should build the tower itself. So let's take a look at this and see if this works. Okay, so it's actually placing it after half a second immediately every single time. So let's take a look at why. This checks if it gets the mouse button down. I need to have a conditional right here. Why didn't anyone tell me? I need to do an if statement right here. Well, that's programming for you. So only if I'm pressing the button down should I actually instantiate it. This gets whether or not I'm pressing the button down, and then the output here, the bool, is whether or not I am actually pressing the button down. And I'm fairly confident I've corrected a couple of people based on this, and I just made the mistake myself. So let's take a look and see if this works. Okay, so here we go. So I click build tower, it spawns the preview object. I'm moving this around, and then when I click, excellent, it places my tower. Build tower, click. Build tower, click. Build tower, click. So you can see how you can adapt this into your own game. Now, the other way that you could go about placing towers is if you have pre-built tower like positions. So what I mean by that is if you had like tower placement objects, like if you had something that looked like, where's my cube here? If you had like a platform and you only want to be able to build towers on those platforms, right? So if you had something that kind of looked like this, and it was like only when the player clicks on this object, I want them to be able to like place their tower. Well, you could determine if it's that object just based on that raycast logic that we're doing. So you'd have one more conditional there that's like, which object did I hit? Is it a tower placement object? And if so, build it. So that's it in a nutshell. You know, building towers out, it's a little bit of logic once you get there, but most of it's relatively, you know, Just, straightforward stuff. Obviously I hit a hitch here, so I fully expect everyone else to encounter their own individual issues as they're going through this. But this is the strategy that I take. Good luck.